Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. Smash the like, hit subscribe. Let's get into this, see if we can generate a big audience on a Friday morning. Thank God it's Friday. Welcome, everybody. Aaron, Canadian Looney. We're going to watch a couple of clips here, then we'll slip into question period right on time. Here we go. We're going to kick it off. Thank you all for tuning in. Reminder, smash the like. It helps generate interest. Let's get right into it. Let's go.
Thank you, Minister. You are the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture. Do you believe that religion is an integral part of Canadian culture and identity?
Absolutely.
So you obviously know where this is going. On October 30th, when you were the chair of the Justice Committee, you spoke about how there is, quote, clear hatred in some verses of the Bible and Torah, and that prosecutors should be able to have the discretion to lay charges if someone invokes a particular scripture that you find objectionable. So how are you standing up for the various diverse communities, faith communities in particular, that you extolled in your opening statement, when you believe that sincerely held religious beliefs should attract prosecution?
I believe anyone should be able to freely read the Bible, Torah, Quran, or any religious scripture. It's a guarantee in the Charter that I will defend as well as you will.
Unless it's a verse that you don't like.
What I said, and you were there, no, I'm glad to answer that.
Mr. McDonald?
This has nothing to do with the budget or the BIA Act.
Thank you.
It stems from comments made in his opening statement, Madam Chair.
Excuse me. Yeah, I didn't recognize you, Mr. Lawton. Mr. McDonald, it's not a point of order. Thank you very much, Mr. Lawton. You can continue to have the floor, but I would ask that you be recognized before you take it. Thank you.
I don't think religious scripture should be used as a defense for a hate crime. If someone publicly says that they want to kill all the gays and that they are relying on a passage in Leviticus, they should be prosecuted. Hard stop. And I'm a Christian. I believe firmly that person should be prosecuted.
And that would not be a good faith usage of Scripture.
That's your debate, but sometimes prosecutors may be prevented from laying charges because there's some hesitation. I think it needs to be clear in the law, and I think you would agree with it, and any reasonable person would as well.
You mentioned back in December, I think if you talk to people of faith and even religious leaders, they would see that this is really something that makes sense regarding removing those religious speech protections from the criminal code. I have spoken to people of faith and religious leaders, and Bill C-9 and the removal of the religious defense has been denounced by the Primate of the Anglican Church of Canada, the United Church of Canada, the National Council of Canadian Muslims, the Rabbinical Council of Toronto, the Conference of Canadian Catholic Bishops, the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada. Why do you believe that you know more than these faith groups about religious freedom and protections for religion in Canada?
As a Protestant, I rely on my relationship with Jesus and my reading of the Bible. I believe ministers can be guides. So I think I stand on an equal footing. I think you would agree with me with that. But if you really want to protect religious institutions, you will talk to Pierre Poilievre, Parliament's only temporary foreign worker, and have him pass C-9 to protect religious institutions.
Your government has signaled that the Online Harms Act, which has been twice tabled and twice not passed, will be returning. This is a bill that, among other things, would, in its previous incarnations, reinstitute Section 13 of the Canadian Human Rights Act, which allows for the Human Rights Code to go after what the government deems online hate speech. Will that be a part of the forthcoming Online Harms Act?
Look, if you want my opinion on it.
Well, I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm asking for your insight as the minister.
Well, I'm not going to speak about deliberations that are in front of Cabinet. If you want my opinion, there are issues in and around freedom of expression about any act that would be presented into Parliament to keep Canadians, and particularly children, safe from online harms. And I don't think it's necessary to have a private recourse regime under the Canadian Human Rights Act.
We have a bill that's before this House of Commons already from Michelle Rempel-Garner, I believe C-216. I might be wrong about the number, but it creates a duty of care for tech companies to deal with very legitimate online harms against children, against sexual victims. Why not support that?
I'm not unsupportive of it, frankly. I spoke to your colleague, Ms. Thomas, recently about that. I haven't yet, in fairness, to speak to Ms. Rempel about it. I think the motive behind it and the purpose behind it is laudable. I think in the articulation of it, it properly should being introduced by the government and supported by one, but willing to work with her on the details.
Will the forthcoming Online Harms Act be a bill that you put forward, or will it be a justice bill?
It's TBD.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
In Canadian federal politics, the Canucks are represented by two separate yet unequal groups: the globalists who sold out and the opposition trying to salvage a country. These are their stories.
We hear so much now about generational investment. And when I hear that, I just think generationally expensive. And you will all have to pay for that, because you are the next generation who are going to inherit the debts of this generation. And that really gets me going, because the Liberals have stoked every divide they can find in this country. And the next one they're stoking, in my view, is this generational divide between, frankly, people my parents' age who own their own, have their retirement, which they worked hard for, and people who are striving to achieve those things, which is you guys. And I think the Liberals are making it extremely difficult for the next generation to do the same things that their parents did. So every dollar spent is just one more dollar on our debt.
Well, look at that.
When you mention the high number of people out on bail and the issues that we've been seeing perennially, not just on this committee's work, but in the news for many years of revolving door bail, what is the effect this has on the resourcing of police departments?
Well, it has a dramatic effect on the resourcing of police departments. You know, we have in the province of Ontario what we call a bail compliance dashboard, which are offenders that are repeat violent offenders out on firearm related offenses. We have over 2,000 offenders registered on that database, for which we have checked more than 14,000 times. So it is very resource intensive, but there's not a lot more important than ensuring repeat violent offenders are abiding by their conditions.
And is it a better use of police resources to monitor those conditions, to monitor people who are illegally using firearms? Is it a better use of resources to do that than to be involved in collecting firearms from licensed, law-abiding firearms owners?
We would absolutely prioritize the enforcement of repeat violent offenders.
In your capacity as with the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, but you're also the Commissioner of the Ontario Provincial Police, which has declined to participate in the Liberal government's firearms confiscation scheme. There are a number of police chiefs of Ontario municipal forces that have also spoken up and said they do not believe this is a legitimate use of their resources, given these issues with bail that are taxing and stretching them. How pervasive is that sense within the police chiefs that you represent?
Many police services, almost every police service across this country, is tasked with the demands that are put before them. Unprecedented amounts of civil unrest in our major urban centers, increasing crime in rural areas, repeat violent offenders that need to be monitored, crime guns that are coming in from the U.S. in unprecedented amounts. We will exceed over 2,000 crime guns this year again. 91% of them are coming in from the U.S. These are the dangers, these are the strains and drains on our resources, and this is where we need to be spending our time and our attention.
And just to confirm, you're saying that these are not guns that are lawfully owned and purchased through the legal means in Canada that are causing the gun crime problems that you're forced and your officers are forced to deal with?
It is very rare that a lawfully possessed firearm in our country gets categorized as a crime gun and is used in a violent act. Our issue, our concern as Canadians should be on those crime guns that are primarily coming from the U.S. They are illegal from the day they arrive, and we need to focus our attentions on the border to lock that down.
We hear so much now about generational investment. And when I hear that,
All right, gang. So we're going to just cross over to the House of Commons now and see what's up. Here we go.
And the bilingual nature of the community is part of our everyday lives, our economy, and our future. Hearst is recognized as an emblem of French-Canadian culture and its drive to persist. Thank you.
The
Honourable Member for Beauharnois-Salaberry-Soulanges Huntington. Mr. Speaker, tomorrow is Valentine's Day. Some people think Valentine's Day is too commercial or corny, and some people say that when you're in love, you don't need a special day, whereas people who are single may not feel it has anything to do with them. But I think that we need, more than ever, to have a day to celebrate love. At a time like this, when there is tragedy, when times are uncertain, and when we're wondering what the future holds, well, more than ever, we need to love one another. And we need to remind each other that we love each other. It's an important time to love and be loved. It's absolutely necessary at a time like this. And it's not a bad idea to set aside a day to love one another. To all those who are in love or who want to be, to all those who need love, to those who I love, my partner, my children, my grandchildren, and to all of you, I would like to wish you happy Valentine's Day.
The Honourable Member for Ottawa Centre.
Speaker, last week was International Development Week, and it was remarkable to learn from partners whose efforts make Canada a leader in development work around the globe. From speaking at Carleton University about how refugees in Canada can contribute to development work globally, to discussing how to bridge the gap between trade and development, it was very productive and enlightening week. I also had the honor to host the brave women of the Afghan Women Parliamentarians and Leaders Network, who shared the impactful stories of their work to fight for peace, democracy, and women's rights in Afghanistan. Speaker, Canada's international development work makes me proud to be a Canadian, and I'm glad to have the chance to support it. Merci.
The Honourable Member for North Island, Powell River.
It was 16 years ago this month, Mr. Speaker, when Canadians from coast to coast came together to celebrate the most dominant performance in Winter Olympic history. 26 medals, 14 of them gold, none more iconic, of course, than Sidney Crosby's golden goal, eliminating the United States and reclaiming Canada's rightful place as the undisputed hockey nation of the world. It was a moment etched into the very memory and identity of this great country, a defining moment of national unity and national pride. Whether you were watching that final game from your living room or at a bar or with the thousands crammed outside of Live City in Yaletown as I was, it was one of those rare instances of pure, unadulterated joy. I know I speak for all members of this House when I wish our amazing athletes representing Canada the best of luck and all the success in the world. And to Nate, Sid, Connor, and the boys on the ice, let's go get another gold medal.
The Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. Mr. Speaker, in my writing, many people leave a real mark in our lives, and I'd like to talk about Serge Paquette. He has given 25 years or more of service to the town of Blainville. He's more than an elected official. He's a good neighbor, a support for his community. He was often to be seen in community activities, right on the ground, in neighborhoods. He's been there throughout the growth of our community. He's strengthened the tissue of our community. And I'd also like to mention the role of his wife, who has brought her warmth to local community life. She is an integral part of the legacy that they will both leave. They're the kinds of people who define social service and love of community. On behalf of everyone in Thérèse de Blainville, I'd like to thank Serge Paquette and Madame Boisvert-Paquette.
The Canadian dream of home ownership is fading for young Canadians. A new report from CMHC highlights that home building is expected to fall in each of the next 3 years and that housing prices will rise. Another report from Missing Middle Initiative shows that nearly half of young Canadians are having to leave the community that they were raised in because they cannot afford to live there, Mr. Speaker. The report states further that over 90% of young Canadians are concerned about the state of housing in Canada. Mr. Speaker, it is time to restore hope in the promise of Canada. Hope in the promise that if You work hard, you play by the rules so that you can afford a good home in a safe neighborhood, Mr. Speaker. And that's why Conservatives are advocating for a plan to take the sales tax off of new homes under $1.3 million, a plan to cut bureaucracy and accelerate home building so that all Canadians can afford a place to call home.
L'honorable député de La Prairie attendant.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to speak about Scout Week, which will take place from February 16th to 22nd. Throughout Canada, the movement brings together 10,000 young people, as well as over 3,000 adult volunteers. The scouting movement is something that represents solidarity, community, and respecting nature. And it is a movement that is training 10,000 future strong citizens. In my riding, La Prairie Attendant, I'd like to congratulate this scouting group. These dynamic young people, with François de l'Étoile, their mentor, have participated in the Christmas market in order to fund their trip to the international scouting meeting in Switzerland. Their determination and efforts are worthy of Baden-Powell. I'd like to congratulate everyone who's participating in Scouting Week 2026. Thank you for everything you've done.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have signed on to $52 billion taxpayer dollars to subsidize EVs. There's one big problem, however, and that is that only a single EV model is manufactured in Canada. Consequently, $52 billion taxpayer dollars are going directly to subsidize foreign EVs and foreign auto workers. This at a time when thousands of Canadian auto jobs have been lost in the face of U.S. tariffs. Meanwhile, the Liberals are opening the floodgates to 50,000 Chinese EVs. This is a straight-up $52 billion foreign giveaway that undermines Canadian autos and Canadian jobs. You literally cannot make this stuff up. Liberal incompetence knows no bounds.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Yes, so thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, less than a year ago, Canadians elected a prime minister and a large Liberal government. At the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, part of that platform was to bring together a legislative agenda to deal with crime. Issues like lawful access, hate propaganda, bail reform, restoring mandatory minimums, a substantial legislation to deal with making our communities safer. The problem is the Conservative Party wants to filibuster the crime package, Mr. Speaker, and that is serving Canadians not in a very positive way. Further, Mr. Speaker, we have the budget implementation bill that delivers for Canadians in every way. I'm calling upon the Conservative Party to stop filibustering, start listening to what Canadians want. They want a strong, healthy Canada. Get off your back ends and start supporting our legislation.
Oral questions. Question.
Let's go.
Member for Barrie, North Innisfil.
They've stolen all of our ideas. A recent Missing Middle Initiative report shows just how many young people have lost hope of ever owning a home. For parents and grandparents, the signs have been obvious for years, and if we're honest about it, the problem started well before Donald Trump became the President of the United States. Despite throwing tens of billions of dollars at the problem, the fact remains that 10 years of structural incompetence and Liberal policies have caused house prices and rent to double, and with it, lost hope of home ownership for a generation. Here's an idea. Why not remove the GST on all new homes to at least start restoring the hope of home ownership for young Canadians?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's most disappointing to see that the Conservatives yesterday voted against a national strategy for housing for young Canadians. Instead, on this side, we care deeply about housing affordability for young Canadians. That's why we have the Build Canada Homes Act before the House, which will catalyze innovation in home building and bring down costs for young Canadians and all Canadians.
A member for Barrie South Innisfil.
We voted against more bureaucracy and more red tape instead of getting the job done. Our kids are worried and our grandkids are worried, Mr. Speaker. In 10 years, home ownership among 30 to 34-year-olds fell 60 to 52%. It's even steeper with young people. 93% of Gen Zs and millennials are worried about the state of housing in Canada today. Unfortunately, unaffordability is reshaping communities, with nearly half of young Canadians reporting they've considered leaving their current city or province. This isn't a tariff issue. It's a self-inflicted wound caused by failed policies. Can we at least agree to start restoring the hope of owning a home for young people by removing the GST on all new homes?
Yeah, we're calling Secretary of the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration and Refugees.
The government has taken a step in that direction. The GST measure is known to the member and it's awaiting royal assent. With respect to getting home ownership going in this country, I agree. We do need to do collectively more to push that. And that is something that the Canadian Home Builders Association in particular has emphasized. What they've also emphasized, Mr. Speaker, is the need to attack regulatory red tape at the municipal level. That's why this government has put in place the Housing Accelerator Fund. In return for federal dollars, municipalities are required to be more flexible when it comes to zoning. That's exactly what we're seeing in almost 240 municipalities.
The member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
It's Liberal government policy that's crushing the dream of home ownership for Canadians, but it doesn't need to be that way. We have the land, the resources, and the skilled workers to address this problem. But a staggering 87% of Canadians are concerned about housing in Canada, and 9 in 10 of those people, well, they're young Canadians. So the Liberals have an opportunity to work with Conservatives to take a real Team Canada approach. So will they work with us to take the tax off of new homes and slash development charges by half to restore the dream of home ownership for young Canadians?
Here. Parliament Secretary, Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Conservatives have the opportunity to work with us on this side of the House by supporting the Budget Implementation Act, which has funding for housing enabling infrastructure through the Build Canada Strong Fund. It also includes measures to decrease the GST, in particular for first-time homebuyers and young Canadians. And, importantly, they can support the Build Canada Homes Act, which is catalyzing innovation and modern methods of construction to bring down home building costs for everyone.
Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
With all of those words and all of the billions that they spend, they still aren't getting homes built. And it's the government's own housing agency, the CMHC, that's blowing the whistle. Construction of new homes will drop by as much as 18% with all of the catalyzing that they're doing. Canadians know that another Liberal bureaucracy isn't the answer. And so that's why today we approach them, we extend our hand in the spirit of collaboration with real solutions that will help address the problems that Canadians see with the end of the dream of home ownership. Will they slash development charges, cut them in half, and take the tax off new homes? Work with us today.
Secretary, Minister of Housing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. They're all talk, we're all action. In 100 days, Build Canada Homes has secured landmark agreements with provinces and cities. It's advanced construction on 6 federal lands. We've lined up thousands of new homes for construction, and over the past month alone, affordable housing projects are well underway in Nova Scotia, Quebec, and Ontario. We're ready to deliver 7,500 homes right away. This is how we accelerate housing. The momentum is building. They should join us.
The Honourable Member for Montmorency-Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, the CMHC is forecasting a drop of nearly 20% in housing starts over the next 2 years. Less production means less supply. Demand, however, continues to rise, so prices are inevitably going up. And in my riding, the average price of a home has risen from $249,000 to over $500,000 in 10 years. The Liberals are patting themselves on the back for these policies, yet the construction industry is talking about a lost decade for home ownership. When will these announcements finally lead to shovels hitting the ground and construction in the real world and not just on paper? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the member for his question. When we talk about housing, I met with the mayors in my riding, and they are waiting with anticipation for this historical investment in municipal infrastructure that we need to build more homes in Quebec. So I would invite my colleague to vote in favour our legislation for the Budget Implementation Act, so we can give the municipalities the funding they need to build homes in Quebec. like my colleague said, everyone is waiting. Young Canadians are having a tough time with the cost of living and the cost of rent. The Liberals tell us they're taking action, but nothing's being done except for these announcements and photo ops. They have a plan for someday. You'll see they'll build something one day, potentially, surely soon, in a project that's currently being reviewed to be announced later. I have a clear proposal for the Liberals. Why don't you eliminate the GST on all new homes under $1.3 million to boost construction and allow for our young people to finally become homeowners? Will you accept our idea? The Honourable Member. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Good news. Build Canada Homes is delivering results. In the first 100 days, we have moved to action by including major agreements with provinces and cities. We have 6 projects announced for construction, and one in my riding of Longueuil-Charlevoix. Yes, Mr. Speaker, we're building more than 1,000 units in my riding, 40% of which are off-market builds, and I invite my colleagues across the way to share this good news. The Honourable Member for Saint Jean.
Is gross.
Mr. Speaker, according to the government, thousands of seniors cannot receive their pensions because of the QM software, and there's a cost overrun of $5 billion. Thousands of victims and more public spending than anticipated, and the Liberals are trying to act like this problem doesn't exist. They're saying these are rare and isolated cases, and they think they can just erase this without any explanations. When are we going to have an independent inquiry into this? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, the modernization of this system, an update of this 60-year-old system was necessary, and we have to make it easier for seniors to access these benefits. And now millions of seniors are receiving their benefits every day. And this is the biggest digital innovation initiative ever undertaken by the government. Service Canada is trying to help all those who are facing issues and is trying to solve them quickly. The Honourable Member for Saint Jean. They're not talking about the 86,000 people or the $50 billion in cost overruns. The Liberals need to see the scope of this issue. There were ministers in Quebec that quit for a small cost overrun, and now they're talking about billions extra, and they're just shrugging their shoulders. They think they're not accountable to anyone, these Liberals. We need a public and independent inquiry. When are they going to accept this? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, as I said, this is the biggest digital transformation ever undertaken, and most of seniors are registered in the system and are receiving their pensions correctly and within the proper deadlines. We've asked members to provide names of constituents who are being affected, and we've also offered an information session on this system. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Salaberry-Soulanges. Mr. Speaker, we need a public and an independent inquiry into QRAM because the Liberals are disconnected from reality. We're looking at 86,000 seniors affected, and they think this is just a banal issue. They're falling through the cracks of this IT systems, and they're just shrugging their shoulders. There are people who are not getting their old age security, and they haven't received it in months. And how are these people going to live, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, our government always supports seniors, particularly thanks to their dental care and the new grocery benefit. The old age security issue is an absolute priority, and the Minister is working tirelessly to solve this issue. The Department has implemented an action plan for this to mobilize all the available resources to solve this issue. Thank you.
Honourable Member for York Durham.
Day by day, year by year, the dream of home ownership is fading away for young Canadians. The Prime Minister's promise was for 500,000 new homes, but CMHC reported this week that he'll only actually build 216,000 and that home building will decline every year to 2028. So does the Prime Minister dispute the CMHC's findings? And if he doesn't, will he admit that he made a promise he knew he could never keep? And Mr. Speaker, we all know what that's called.
Parliament Secretary, the Minister of International Trade.
Well, this is precisely the reason why, Speaker, the Prime Minister and his government is completely focused on building more homes in our country. That is why we have brought in a piece of legislation, Bill C-20, that is going to Build Canada Homes, that is going to ensure that we build more housing across this country. That is why we have hired somebody like Anna Bala, who has the knowledge and expertise to make this happen. We are taking concrete actions. We're not just talking about things. I'm really too happy to hear that there's some talk of collaboration from the opposition. That is a good sign. Let's work together to build more housing across our country.
The Honourable Member for York Durham.
Where are the homes, Mr. Speaker? Where are the homes? They keep talking about building, but we see no action. And in fact, not only will home building decrease, CMHC says that home prices will rise. So we have less supply, more demand, and higher prices. That's a nightmare scenario for young Canadians. So it appears to me that the Prime Minister's lofty political promise was nothing more than Romeo's lie when he swore his love on blessed yonder moon. So will the Prime Minister instead adopt our proposal to cut the GST on all new homes?
I'm just going to pause just very briefly. The member's very close to the line there, even when quoting Shakespeare, being the MP from Stratford. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my colleague opposite for the great question. When I'm home talking with constituents in Fredericton Armagh, what I hear is that they appreciate that our Prime Minister and our government has a plan to diversify our exports, foster and facilitate interprovincial trade, and make historic investments in the infrastructure that's going to enable all of this. This is going to mean a stronger economy, more housing, better paying jobs, and long-term careers. I also hear that they want us to work together. So let's do that. Let's work together and get this done. Thank you very much.
Member for London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, the Canadian dream of home ownership is fading for young Canadians. CMHC now warns that home building will fall over the next 3 years, with 2028 housing starts projected to be down 18% compared to 2025, even as prices continue to rise. At the same time, nearly half of young Canadians say they're being forced to leave the communities they were raised in because they cannot afford to live there. When will the government adapt our plan to remove the GST on all new homes and restore the dream of home ownership for young Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Citizenship, Immigration and Refugees.
The Honourable Member is a new member. I want to commend him. He has been very active in the community. It's been good to get to know him and to work with him. I know he cares also, of course, about home ownership. He has met with the London Home Builders Association recently, and what they've shared is exactly what I said earlier. That regulatory red tape at the municipal level stands as the largest impediment to getting more homes built. Unless we address that, there won't be home ownership worthy of calling the right outcome for Canadians. What we need to do is push that. The Housing Accelerator Fund does exactly that. London is moving in that direction. Other municipalities are too.
Member for London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, with respect to spike government announcements and stage photo ops, the data clearly shows that we're not building enough homes to meet Canada's needs. An insufficient supply of new homes is why CMHC expects prices to keep rising. Just this week, I also met with London members of the Canadian Home Builders Association, and they informed me that taxes and regulatory costs have risen 700% over 25 years and now make up 30% of the price of a new home. At what point will this government acknowledge these burdens and adopt our plan to remove GST on new homes?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, Minister of Public Works and Transformation.
Mr. Speaker, our government has a plan to build Canada strong. We have a plan to create good jobs across this country, to attract investment across this country. We are building industrial capacity, building affordable homes, and investing in our future. And we've also introduced a new Buy Canadian policy, so we are our own best customer. That's how you build Canada strong, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Smilkeny, South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
The government
government's own housing agency shows fewer homes being built over the next 3 years, while home prices will only rise. A third of home builders are building less because they're forced to lay off workers. Young men and women in BC are seeing the dream of home ownership fading. Years of Liberal home building programs have not delivered. Will the Liberals adopt our plan to remove the GST on all new homes to help builders build and young Canadians buy?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Prime Minister and Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague from British Columbia for the question. I'm so proud to stand on the side of the House as we build Canada strong from coast to coast to coast. Building Canada's housing is very important, not only in cities and provinces, but in First Nations communities. I live on a First Nations community whose housing list is over 500 people. These people want to come home to their communities. That's why I'm so proud of this new policy. That's why I know that my children are to be able to live where they please with their families for future generations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, member for Calgary Nose Hill.
The Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation just said that by 2028, new housing starts will fall by as much as 18.1%. And meanwhile, the Liberals continue to bring in hundreds of thousands more temporary foreign workers and have no plans to get millions with expired visas to leave. Housing starts aren't keeping up with immigration, and the Canadian dream of home ownership is fading for young people. When will the government adopt our positive plan to incentivize home building by removing the GST on all new homes and restore the dream of home ownership for young Canadians?
Yeah, let's go. The Honourable Minister of Emergency Management.
Mr. Speaker, we're building big in this country, and that means building more homes. While the Conservatives belittle what's been done so far, it's time to check some facts. In Calgary's a recognized national leader in terms of fast-tracking housing projects using federal program funding, like the Housing Accelerator Fund, building affordable and inclusive and resilient communities. If the Conservatives really cared about housing for young people, they'd support our plan, which will deliver real results for Calgarians and Albertans.
Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Rents have doubled in Calgary, and it's not just the dream of owning a home that's fading for young Canadians. Data shows that the prospects of getting a good-paying entry-level job for Canadian youth has never been dimmer. Canada's economy is slow, and now artificial intelligence is changing entry-level jobs in almost every field, including law and accounting. Given all of this, why are the Liberals bringing in hundreds of thousands of more temporary foreign workers, have no plans to get millions with expired visas to leave, instead of incentivizing businesses to hire and give hope to Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Emergency Management.
Mr. Speaker, affordability starts with opportunity, and that means making sure every Canadian can get a good-paying career. Our plan is working. Just last month in Alberta alone, nearly 42,000 good full-time careers were created. That's more people earning paychecks, putting money back in the economy, and getting ahead. At a moment when Canadians are focused on affordability, it's time for Conservatives to stop blocking the Budget Implementation Act and back a plan that's delivering real results.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Bloc Québécois leader met with the Prime Minister. He insisted that we absolutely have to end these low-cost truckers. And that's not all. It's not only the federal government's not doing much on this file. They're even part of the problem. Canada Post hired no less than 25 companies that are using these low-cost trucking companies, and they're doing this with taxpayer money. When the Liberals get these low-cost drivers off our roads instead of just taking out their checkbooks? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, Canada Post is proud to work with many trucking companies across this country, and in doing so, the CEO of Canada Post has ensured us that there is no engagement with the Drivers Inc. model. All contracted suppliers are provided with clear expectations, a code of conduct to abide by, and consequences for non-compliance. As a government, we expect Canada Post to abide by these standards. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Poilievre, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, They could solve this issue if they started admitting that these do exist instead of encouraging these low-cost drivers. Canada Post has used at least 25 companies of this type. We provided many solutions to get these dangerous drivers off our roads, but they continue. And not only are they not using these solutions, but they're hiring these low-cost drivers. It raises a fundamental question. Why do these Liberals not want to solve the problem? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Merci.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Canada Post is proud to be able to cooperate with many trucking companies across the country. By doing so, the CEO of Canada Post has assured us that this company has no links to the Drivers Inc. model. All of their subcontractors have clear agreements and a code of conduct to respect, and a consequence if they do not respect this. As a government, we expect these standards to be respected by Canada Post.
China, our biggest security threat. Now he tells us that they are a strategic partner. He told Canadian canola farmers to expect lower tariffs by March 1st. Yet just yesterday, we learned that Beijing is delaying its decision until at least March 9th. Last time I checked, partners keep their word. Our farmers deserve better than uncertainty, shifting timelines, and empty promises. Yet that's all this Liberal government has delivered. So I ask, is there truly a deal to reduce tariffs on Canadian canola, or did the Prime Minister mislead our farmers about getting results?
The Honourable Economic Secretary, the Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to start by saying that our canola grow the best canola in the world.
Absolutely.
They're doing a tremendous work. And yes, we have a great partnership, a renewed strategic partnership with China to export canola. And in fact, we know that Chinese importers have already secured 650,000 metric tons of Canadian canola, which is 25% of China's total import last year. So, Mr. Speaker, the door is wide open now, and we will continue to engage in reaching a strong global...
The Honourable Member for Portage Lisgar.
That did not instill any confidence for Canadian canola growers. The Prime Minister's deal with Beijing opens our streets up to 49,000 Chinese EVs annually, jeopardizing our security and our auto jobs. He assured Canadians that everything was fine, telling us that we'd have canola tariffs drop by March 1st. But yesterday's announcement that China is pushing back its decision on tariffs until March 9th, we can't now be sure that he's delivering anything at all. So farmers are left hung out to dry. And in exchange for what? Fancy photo ops and false promises. Can our farmers actually expect lower tariffs, or was the Prime Minister merely hoodwinked into making concessions for nothing in return?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Mr. Speaker, I want to reassure my colleague that the new partnership that the government has secured with China is being implemented. We have orders, and in fact, orders have been placed, and the commerce is resuming right now with China. So it's a good news. I invite my colleague to come to us if he wants more detail, but the commerce is resuming with China, definitely.
The Honourable Member for Bow River.
Commerce resuming doesn't mean tariffs are coming off. Beijing has postponed its decision on whether it will reduce tariffs on Canadian canola just weeks before seeding begins. Decisions need to be made now by farmers. Last year, many farmers, including me, chose not to seed canola because of those tariffs and the price collapse. Yet the Prime Minister stood before Canadians and said tariffs would fall to 15% by March 1st. The Liberals promised action. All they've delivered is dust. Did the Prime Minister mislead Canadian farmers?
Hear, hear. The Minister of International Trade.
Speaker, we will not rest until normal trade resumes to make sure that canola is being shipped to all markets around the world, including China. And that's why the Prime Minister and this government has been working really hard. That is why the Prime Minister visited China to help reduce the tariffs of canola. As my colleague said earlier, we are so fortunate to have one of the best canola grown right here in this country. There's a demand for that canola across the world. That's why we are negotiating free trade agreements with countries like Philippines and Indonesia and Vietnam, where we can export this canola as well, and we will continue to do that work.
Member for Regina Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, last month during the Prime Minister's visit to Beijing, he announced that he finally had a deal to roll back that country's tariffs on Canadian canola. He even had a grandiose signing ceremony with Xi Jinping in front of Canadian and Chinese flags. But yesterday, the Chinese announced that they were postponing their decision until March 9th. So, Mr. Speaker, is Beijing backing out of the deal, or was the Prime Minister misleading Canadian canola farmers in the first place?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, I just answer and reassure my colleague that trade is resuming with China. But I want to also highlight that the Agriculture Minister next week will be in Mexico, opening even more the market. We secure market for meat, and now he want to expand these opportunities. And we're not stopping there, Mr. Speaker, because we have the best food in the world, and the world want our food, and we will make that possible.
Member for Edmonton Northwest.
Despite the Prime Minister announcing that China will reduce tariffs on canola by March 1st, reports say the Chinese Commerce Ministry revealed that it only committed to making a decision by March 9th. What kind of master negotiator is the Prime Minister when he refuses to acknowledge that the deals he promised with China and the U.S. are falling through? Canadian farmers are looking for the truth, to be able to plan this year's crops to ensure that Canadian households can afford to eat Canadian quality products. Did the Prime Minister mislead Canadian farmers into thinking he got a deal done on Canadian canola?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of International Trade.
Speaker, this government is working day in and day out to ensure that we are diversifying our trade, that we are working with as many countries as possible. As we speak, the Minister of International Trade is visiting places like Singapore and Vietnam so that we can create opportunities in those markets. The Standing Committee on International Trade just recently have sent 2 bills, one dealing with the United Kingdom, the other dealing with Indonesia, back to this House so that we can finalize those trade agreements. Every single of those agreements ensures that our agricultural farmers, including Kelowna farmers, have new markets to sell their products.
Member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, at Human Committee earlier this week, members from the Breakfast Club of Canada and the Coalition for Healthy School Food talked about the real impact of National School Food Program on kids and families. When a motion was brought forward to study those impacts, Conservative and Bloc members chose to adjourn debate before it even began. Can the Parliamentary Secretary for Children and Youth remind the House of how this program is supporting children, helping families with affordability, and why it matters that we continue to move this work forward?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my colleague for representing the great people of Carleton and the issues that they care about. Kids cannot learn if they are hungry. A new study from the Breakfast Club of Canada shows that school food programs improve educational outcomes, reduce childhood obesity, and increase disposable incomes for families facing rising costs. Canada was the last country in the G7 to have a national school food program. Now we do. The budget makes it permanent. It's a shame that Conservative members don't think that kids' health and school food are worth studying or voting for.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
For almost 2 years, flight attendants told this government and parliamentarians that they were working for free. And we believed them. Conservatives introduced a bill to fix that problem. Liberals didn't believe them, and they ordered a study. After 6 months, this study, wait for it, has determined it needs to do another study. You actually can't make this stuff up. Why won't the Liberals believe flight attendants when they say they're working for free and adopt the Conservative bill that would have fixed the problem instead of ordering another study to study a study?
Parliament Secretary for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, nobody should work for free in this country. We take any claim of unpaid work seriously. After allegations of unpaid work in the airline sector, we launched a probe to get to the bottom of the claims. Phase 1 of that probe has now been published, and we're going to keep investigating to ensure that the work is happening in accordance with the Canadian Labour Code. Workers must be paid for the hours they work, and we're going to make sure that employers follow the rules.
For Dufferin-Caledon.
Yeah, except this probe that they ordered determined that they needed to do another probe. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things that you could say about that, Mr. Speaker. But here's the facts. The head of QP Air came to committee when we were looking into this and said, what are the Liberals going to study next if water is wet? And he went on to say about this study, we called for action last summer, and instead we got a study that resulted in a promise to perform another study. This is really thin gruel from these Liberals. Conservatives know flight attendants work for free. It's why we introduced a bill to fix it. Why don't they just steal that idea like they steal all of our ideas and help flight attendants instead of doing another study?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, we stand by the work that we're doing. We want to take action that is informed by evidence, and we've asked all sides in this to actually provide that evidence. Phase 2 of the probe will collect more evidence from airlines and unions to ensure that employers are complying with the Canada Labour Code. This step is necessary to provide additional clarity on how the airline sector's pay structure aligns with the code. This is important information for us to know and to get right.
For North Island, Powell River.
Devastated, anxious, fearful of what the future may hold. I'm sure these are just some of the emotions the 25,000 Canadians who lost their jobs last month undoubtedly feel. These are individuals, like all Canadians, who even when they were working were already struggling with the cost of groceries, the cost of rent, the cost, Mr. Speaker, of just getting by. Now, not only are they dealing with a cost of living crisis, they are out of a job. This Prime Minister promised the fastest growing economy in the G7, but when will his policies deliver anything other than job losses, massive deficits, and the highest cost of groceries of our economic peers?
I'm going to allow the member to answer the question, but I'll just remind members they should be with their own seat, in their own seat when they do ask a question. Now, I'm a parliamentary secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I commend the member on...
Order. I'm going to ask members to restrain themselves and not be inappropriate or childlike in terms of the comments they make. Member.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for the question. It gives me the opportunity to say that Bill C-19 has received royal assent. It shows what...
Thank you very much, Mike Tremblay. You're the best. That's a lot of months, bro. Thanks for hanging out with us.
We can do when we work together in this House of Commons. Of course, that is the groceries and essentials benefit that will provide up to $1,900 for a family of 4 in what is certainly a difficult time for this country. But I also urge the member to look past politics, to work with all members in this House, and to echo what Prime Minister Harper said. Let's work together on behalf of the country in a very difficult moment. We can do it.
From North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, working together is great, but this question was about jobs. And in the real world, liberal rhetoric and platitudes don't create a single job. GDP was flat in November. Real GDP is projected to decline. The Bank of Canada says business investment will remain weak. Meanwhile, 5,400 forestry workers in coastal BC are already out of a job. This government promised to build nation-building projects and create jobs at a speed like we've never seen before. My question for the government, where are these projects and where are these jobs?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliament Secretary, the Minister of Industry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud to be associated with a government whose record on jobs is very strong, with jobs growing faster here, even in the United States, where incomes are growing faster than inflation. And with the next part of our plan, the Budget Implementation Act, C-15, before this Parliament right now, the honourable member opposite can work with his colleagues to work with us to ensure speedy passage of that act to get major projects that the member is talking about and the economic growth that is behind this bill for. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
A member for Red Deer.
Mr. Speaker, the price of food is out of control. Too many families in Alberta are struggling. Just in Alberta alone, grocery prices have risen 50% in 5 years. Beef prices are up 53%, eggs up 37%, vegetables up 20%. These are not luxuries, these are essentials, and Canadians can't afford this Liberal government. The Prime Minister said he should be judged by the cost at the grocery store. Well, Judgment Day is coming. When will the Prime Minister remove taxes, start getting things built so Canadians can live affordably?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we had a big announcement addressing this very issue because we know it is something that Canadians are struggling with, and therefore we have announced the new Canada Groceries and Essentials benefit. Mr. Speaker, this not only gives a one-time benefit to Canadian families, but also helps them for the next 5 years. But we're not only doing that, Mr. Speaker, we're also looking at how to strengthen our supply chains. We're investing in companies that are in the business of food manufacturing. We're investing in greenhouses so that we can have more food in our country. Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Louis St. Laurent Rock.
Thanks again, Mike. That's amazing. Very generous. Appreciated a great deal.
Mr. Speaker, one thing that people don't understand about the current affordability crisis is that it's impacting the birth rate. There are couples who are waiting to buy a home before they have children. As one expert has explained, I don't want my children to have less than I had growing up. That's what the Canadian dream means, and unfortunately, the Canadian dream has been shattered by 10 years of Liberal governance. Why won't they adopt our idea of lifting the GST on new homes? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Good morning, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the comment from my colleague. In Northern Ontario, I recently met with real estate organizations, and we spoke about the need for affordable housing, including housing with support services. The real estate industry expects us to pass the Build Canada Homes Act, as well as the Budget Implementation Act. I would encourage my colleagues to vote with us. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Louis St. Laurent-Akiawanrock. But, Mr. Speaker, the reality is that the Liberals have been in power for 10 years, and for 10 years, the Canadian public has been disappointed by their inaction on the housing file. And the future does not look any brighter. CMHC is projecting an 18% reduction in home building. You need to take the bill by the horns here. There needs to be something positive offered to the public. So why won't the government adopt our approach of lifting the GST on new homes? Because that would impact all of Canada positively. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, Mr. Speaker, I agree that housing and affordable housing especially are important. I hope that we will be able to continue federal action, which has led to thousands of housing units being built in Quebec, for example, in Longueuil. The Liberals should vote in favour of our Budget Implementation Act so we can, in fact, build affordable housing. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All week, I have been asking questions about the CURAM system. This was a financial fiasco, which was supposed to cost $1.6 billion, but instead ended up costing $6.6 billion. It has left 86,000 seniors waiting for their money. And the only answer I've gotten back from the government is, could you send us their names? Seriously, I guess that's what the Liberals think of as leadership. I'll give them one more chance to give an answer other than send us their name. If they give the same answer again, it will prove their incompetence. Hopefully, they'll show leadership this week. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, as I have stated, this is the largest digital transformation ever completed. The overwhelming majority of people in the system are correctly receiving their benefits on time. We've reached out to members' offices to ask for the names of impacted persons. We have also offered opposition members a briefing on the system. We will always support seniors through benefits, including our dental benefit. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, honestly, I'm speechless. I'm sorry, but they have just proven their gross incompetence. They have just proven the lack of respect they have for our seniors. They have just proven the lack of respect for Canadians who have paid $500 billion more than was expected. They have just proven that the Liberals don't give a damn about the people. I will keep fighting. They're still showing incompetence, but hopefully the minister can at least confirm that there is a task force working on this. If not, the minister can remain seated. Mr. Speaker, the department has been working to modernize a decades-old system to process more applications for the decades to come. 7 billion seniors already receive their benefits on time, and the department is working on delayed benefits.
I have good news, Mr. Speaker. Following almost unprecedented levels of collaboration, Bill C-19 has received royal assent. As a result, over 12 million Canadians will now receive vital support to help pay for groceries and other essentials. Canadians are expecting us to once again put partisanship aside and pass the Budget Implementation Act. Can the Parliamentary Secretary update this House on how swift passage of the BIA will help unlock generational investments and build the strongest economy in the G7?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
The member, in the short time that she's served as an MP, is making an outstanding contribution, particularly on economic issues. She is, after all, a tech entrepreneur at not one but two companies. She understands the importance of putting in place a foundation for the Canadian economy. C-19 did receive royal assent. 12 million Canadians will benefit. We can go a step further and put in place a foundation for the future of this country, and that is, of course, the budget. I've had the opportunity to serve for a few meetings now on the Federal Finance Committee. We're working well there. I hope Conservatives work with us to pass the budget without obstruction. I know they're up to it, and I know that the country needs that right now.
The honourable member for Calgary Centre.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday at Finance Committee, the President of the Canada Infrastructure Bank stated that none of the funds lent to electric bus makers was written off, despite the bankruptcy of Lion Electric, which at least had $470 million allocated to it. The Strategic Innovation Fund also committed $50 million to Lion. That's a write-off. Export Development will not disclose how much they lost. Lion Electric was always a funding scheme that enabled insiders to profit from this government's transition narrative. Will a responsible minister provide some transparency and show taxpayers how much this scam has cost them?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Industry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the question from my colleague opposite, who is a constructive member on these questions. Obviously, the situation that he refers to with a particular company has its issues, but we know more generally that investments in renewable technology work. We know that the future direction of both heavy vehicles and light vehicles is increasingly electric. That's why we're making the investments we're making. In terms of the question to the Canada Infrastructure Bank, I'll refer those questions to the bank.
The member of Calgary Centre.
Well, I don't know how much proof they have to see that this actually isn't working, that money's going off the table and nothing's being accomplished. But the president of Lion Electric, Mark Bedard, sold $33 million of his shares prior to its bankruptcy in what is known as a pump-and-dump stock play. The Liberal government acted as a pump with millions of taxpayer dollars. Mr. Bedard and his friends then orchestrated the dump, and they walked away with millions. The minister did not include a share lockup with the grants. This is at least gross incompetence. It's financial crime, Mr. Speaker, the victims of which are Canadian taxpayers. Will any minister finally do the right thing and call in the RCMP?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I was at the Federal Finance Committee yesterday with the Honourable Member. He knows how the answer was put forward by Mr. Corey of the Infrastructure Bank. There's no deal with Lyon. What happened with Lyon in terms of the bankruptcy obviously is regrettable, certainly. But those buses that were intended to be procured are on the road under the operation of another company. The company was in fact sold. When it comes to the Infrastructure Bank, there is, and the founding act of the bank makes this clear, audits are required. He can look at those audits. The Auditor General is required to look at the Infrastructure Bank. Committee meetings can happen. The answers were clear.
For Edmonton West.
There's rampant use of illegal workers on federally funded infrastructure projects in Alberta. These traffic workers are being abused, robbed, and forced into unsafe work conditions, while union trades are shut out of the very jobs their taxes are funding. Over a year ago, I presented evidence to this government of this corruption, and yet no action. We tried to start a study in committee on the issue, but the Liberals blocked it. So why are the Liberals siding with corrupt companies using illegal traffic workers instead of standing with Alberta's building trades?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Housing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have lots of respect for all of those individuals that are out there building important infrastructure in Canada. We expect all employers to follow the rules to ensure that Canadians are safe day in and day out, and we will continue to work forward so that we can make sure that happens.
The Honourable Member for Honoré-Mercier.
Also have good news for you today. Bill C-14, the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act, after months of Conservative obstruction, is finally making its way through. Premiers, mayors, and law enforcement from across the country have called on Parliament to quickly pass this bill so that it could soon become the law of the land. Can the Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Justice please share with Canadians the progress made on the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
I thank my colleague for the question. Mr. Speaker, our new Liberal Prime Minister was given a clear mandate by Canadians to tighten bail, strengthen sentences, and keep repeat violent offenders in jail where they belong. After months and months of obstruction by the Conservatives committee, holding Bill C-14 hostage, running down the clock by talking about cats and dogs, they finally relented last week and allowed the bill to move forward. Today, as the bill reaches its final stage at third reading, I urge the Conservatives to support this important piece of legislation, which will help keep our communities safe.
The Honourable Member for Côte du Sud, Rivière-du-Loup, Kataskamik-Témiscouata. Mr. Speaker, the College and Community Innovation Program supports research centres like Novica, Biopter, Optech, and La Pocatière. It lets businesses innovate and create jobs in rural areas, yet the budget for these research centres will be cut by 30%. They're already wasting $5 billion in the QRM cost overruns. They're leading to more debt and less results. It makes no sense. My question is a simple one. Why are the Liberals cutting research and innovation instead of cutting their unjustified expenses? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the question. We recognize that colleges do vitally important research, and we recognize the importance of their ties to the business community. Intellectual property should remain in the hands of businesses and colleges. That is very important to us. We have heard certain claims about this program. We are currently speaking about this program.
Remember to smash the like, hit subscribe. It does help. Let's give it a go. I know, just a reminder.
Program with colleges.
Prime Minister says he's committed to Pharmacare, but today only 3 provinces and 1 territory are covered. That's about 17% of all Canadians. A commitment to Pharmacare should mean access for Canadians no matter where they live. Right now, access to medicine depends on your postal code. It's not nation building when you only give certain provinces and territories access to medicine. Will the Prime Minister commit today to expanding Pharmacare to every province and territory that wants in, so Canadians aren't treated differently based on where they live?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for his question. And I know the member works really hard for his community, and I appreciate the collaboration on this very matter. Our government will always protect Canada's healthcare system, including pharmacare and dental care. These are clear commitments, and we will always keep them. We're continuing to work with all provinces and territories to see how we can best support them to strengthen healthcare system, including on pharmacare. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Great job. The honourable member for Nunavut.
The First Nations Caring Society created Have a Heart Day. I attended an event held at the Meridian Theatres at Center Point. There were about 15 schools with around 700 students at this beautiful event. Originally started in 2012, this campaign has students write letters to the Prime Minister regarding the injustices towards Indigenous peoples. Will the Prime Minister honour these calls and finally act to give equity to Indigenous peoples in Canada?
Here. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary and Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member opposite for her question and her passion for this issue. And it's absolutely clear that we must continue to do everything we can to eliminate discrimination in Canada. That is why our ministers are meeting with stakeholders, they're meeting with partners, they're ensuring they get this right. We will continue to be focused on ensuring reconciliation moving forward, and I look forward to talking with the member opposite and explaining what the minister is doing over the next few weeks.
And that concludes question period for today. I see the Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons has raised on a point of order.
Thank you so much.
The minister's going to
Speaker.
speak.
There have been discussions among the parties, and if you seek it, I believe you'll find unanimous consent for the following motion: that notwithstanding any standing order or usual practice of the House, Bill C-15, an act to implement certain provisions of the budget tabled in Parliament on November 4th, 2025, be disposed of as follows. A, it be an instruction to the Standing Committee on Finance that, during its consideration of the bill, 1, the committee shall have the first priority for the use of House resources for committee meetings. 2, all amendments for clause-by-clause consideration of the bill be submitted to the clerk of the committee in both official languages no later than noon on Thursday, February 19th, 2026. 3, the clerk of the committee write immediately to each member who is not a member of a caucus represented on the committee and any independent members to inform them of the study of the bill by the committee and to invite them to prepare and submit any proposed amendments to the bill, and that these amendments shall be deemed proposed during clause-by-clause consideration of the bill. 4. The chair of the committee write as promptly as possible to the chairs of the standing committees who have chosen to consider the subject matter of the provisions in the bill to inform them that any recommendations or suggested amendments be sent to the chair of the standing committee on finance no later than noon, Thursday, February 19th, 2026. 5. The committee proceed to clause-by-clause consideration of the bill no later than Monday, February 23rd, 2026 at 11 o'clock a.m. 6. If the committee has not completed the clause-by-clause consideration of the bill by 5 o'clock p.m. on Monday, February 23rd, 2026, all remaining amendments submitted to the committee shall be deemed moved. The chair shall put the question forthwith and successively without further debate on all remaining clauses and proposed amendments.
We're done with that. We're not going to listen to Stephen McKinnon. That's not what we're doing here. He's got bullshit to say all the time. He's a prick in such an awkward presence all the time. You know he's a creep, lying to Canadians about everything that they're doing, trying to sabotage your children's future, grandchildren's future, your futures for theirs. That's it. It shouldn't be a zero-sum game. Anyhow, they're crooked as can be. My name's Aaron. Thank you all so much for watching. If you're looking for a question period, if you're just tuning in, grab the timeline and zip it back. We just watched the entire question period and a couple of interesting videos to kick off the show. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank God it's Friday. That's it. It's a weekend. We got a whole bunch of snow here to get rid of. Boy, oh boy. That's it. It's been fun, gang. Thank you all so much for tuning in. A lot of generosity there, Mike Tremblay. Thank you, brother. We're out for now, gang. That's it. You guys crack me up in here. We're out. We're going out. We are leaving. At some point. Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
You should do exercises. That's important to our good health. And friends, tomorrow we are going to be visiting with a fisherman who will tell us about his very enjoyable hobby. Now, I would like to see you all through our magic mirror. Romper bumper, stomper boo, tell me, do. Magic mirror, please tell me today, did all of my friends have fun at play? I see all of my friends in Alberta. It's nice to see you. And I see Dan and Vivian. I see Marlon and Mona. I see Catherine and Harley. I see Anne and Elizabeth and Jane. I see Bert and Nicole. And I see you too. I hope to see you tomorrow, right here in Romp Room.
Bing bong, knock knock, hey daddy do. Bing bong, tick tock, bebop boom.
Kick off your weekend with exciting CFL action when the Edmonton Eskimos tackle the BC Lions in Vancouver. Tomorrow night at 10:30 on CFTO TV.